My name is Robert, and I am 65 years old. For the last 6 years, I have allowed my daughter, Sarah, and her husband, Chad, to live in my home completely rent-free. Last Wednesday, she slammed an electric bill down in front of me and screamed that I was nothing more than a guest in her house. She demanded I start paying $5,000 a month or get out. I just nodded, packed a single bag, and walked out. They had no idea the house was protected by an ironclad legal trust. I immediately called my attorney and sold the property for $940,000 in cash. When the new owners began the eviction process, Sarah called me in a complete panic, but my response was the last thing she expected. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you are watching from. It helps more than you know. The slap of the paper on the granite countertop was like a gunshot in the quiet of the kitchen. It was the only sound for a moment. A sharp crack that felt like the starting signal for a race I never knew I was running. My son-in-law, Chad, used a greasy finger to slide it closer to me. $450, Robert, he said. His voice a lazy drawl that somehow always managed to sound both bored and accusing at the same time. Trying to air condition the entire state of Texas? I looked at the bill. $450.37. It was addressed to me, Robert, the man whose name was on the deed to the very land this house was built on. The land Chad was standing on. I'm the one who pays this bill, Chad, I said, keeping my voice level. I've told you that. I've paid every bill in this house for 5 years. It's the principle of the thing, he shot back. Chad is 39. He wears polo shirts that look like he slept in them, which he probably did. He lives in my house for free and hasn't held down a real job in close to a year. He sure talks a lot about principles. We're trying to save money here, he continued, jabbing a finger at the bill as if it were a hostile witness. And you're cranking the AC like we own the power company. We. The word felt strange and heavy. We don't pay the bill, I do. And it's July. It's 100 degrees outside. That's when my daughter Sarah walked in. She was drying her hands on a dish towel, one of the last remaining from the set my late wife and I got for our wedding 45 years ago. She saw the bill. She saw Chad's defensive slouch, and immediately, reflexively, she took his side. Dad, he's right, she said. Her voice was soft, which I had learned was always worse than when she yelled. We all need to be more mindful. Every single dollar counts for us right now. I looked at my daughter, my Sarah. She was wearing a full Lululemon workout outfit, the kind where the leggings alone cost over $100. She hadn't worked a day since she married Chad 5 years ago. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to point that out. Sarah, I said, my patience wearing thin, I have paid this bill. I pay the property taxes, I pay the insurance, I buy the groceries. I have paid for every single thing in this house for 5 years. Ever since the two of you moved in right after your mother passed. This kitchen with its custom cherry wood cabinets I'd built with my own hands and the marble countertops I'd installed just last year had been her sanctuary. Now it felt like a courtroom. Chad let out a scoff. Don't pull the dead wife card, Robert. This is about responsibility. We're a family. We're supposed to be a team. A team, I repeated, a team where I was the only one pulling the plow. And what's your contribution to this team, Chad? I don't see you contributing to the $20,000 a year tax bill. I don't see you buying groceries. I did see a $300 set of golf clubs from Amazon get delivered to this address last week, though. Chad's face flushed a dull red. That was a business expense. I'm networking. Networking for what? A job you haven't even applied for? Enough, Sarah shouted. The shift was instant. The soft, concerned daughter was gone, replaced by this sharp, brittle stranger she had become. This is the problem, Dad. You're always attacking. You're always judging us. You sit here in your little kingdom and look down on us. This little kingdom is my home, I said, my voice hardening. It's our home, she snapped back. We live here. We've put our lives on hold to be here with you. I almost laughed. On hold? You moved in because you were being evicted from your condo in Houston. You moved in because Chad lost his job. You told me it would be temporary. We moved in to support you after Mom died, she cried. That was 5 years ago, Sarah. I am fine. It seems to me that you're the ones who need the support. This was going in circles. I sighed, picking up the bill and folding it neatly. I will pay this, as I always do, but Chad, you will not speak to me that way in my own house again. Chad looked at Sarah. It was a silent, smug challenge. Are you going to let him talk to me like that? Sarah drew herself up to her full height. Her face set into a mask of cold resolve, and the daughter I knew vanished completely. No, Sarah said, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous register. We're not doing this anymore, Dad. We are not going to live under your thumb. I thought the argument was over, but my daughter was just getting started. The next words out of her mouth would change everything forever, and she had no idea the storm she was about to unleash. My thumb? I asked, genuinely baffled. I pay for everything. How is that living under my thumb? Exactly, she interrupted, her eyes flashing. You hold it over us, this kingdom of yours. You make us feel small. You make us feel like children in our own home. Chad chimed in, sensing he had the advantage. She's right, Robert. We can't build our future when we're stuck here living off your scraps, worrying about a $400 electric bill. Then don't worry about it, I said, my voice flat. Both of you go get jobs and buy your own house. Sarah let out a laugh. It was a sharp, ugly sound that had no place in a kitchen. Oh, Dad, you just don't get it, do you? We like this house. We like this neighborhood. This is our life. You're the one who's in the way. I stared at her, the words feeling like a physical blow. In the way? Do you have any idea, she said, stepping closer, what it's like to be 37 years old and have to tell your friends you still live with your father? Do you know how humiliating that is? I imagine it's less humiliating than telling them you're homeless. I muttered under my breath. What did you say? She demanded, her voice rising again. Nothing. No, say it. I want to hear it. I stood up, my worn knees protesting. The room felt suddenly smaller. I repeated, my voice low and clear. I imagine it's less humiliating than being homeless, which is exactly what you would have been 6 years ago if I hadn't taken you in. The truth hit her like a slap, but instead of shame, it curdled into pure, unadulterated rage. She turned to Chad. See, this is what I'm talking about. He holds it over us. He treats us like we're nothing. She spun back to me, her face a mask of cold fury. You know what, Dad? Chad and I had a long talk last night. We've been your caretakers for 6 years. 6 years. Caretakers? I almost shouted. I'm 65, not 95. I don't need a caretaker. I fixed your garbage disposal last week. I drove you to your doctor's appointment because Chad was too busy. It's emotional labor, Dad, she yelled. The stress of worrying about you. The burden of knowing you're just in the next room, listening, judging. We are wasting the best years of our lives, the years we should be building our own family, stuck here babysitting a bitter old man. A bitter old man, I repeated. The words tasted like ash. Yes. And it's over, she said, crossing her arms in finality. We've made a decision. Things are going to change, for real this time. Chad stood beside her, a triumphant smirk playing on his lips. This had his fingerprints all over it, but Sarah was his willing executioner. All right, I said, sitting back down, a strange calm settling over me. What change are you proposing? You want me to stop fixing the plumbing? No, Sarah said. We want you to start contributing. Really contributing. I contribute everything. You contribute to the house, Chad interjected. You don't contribute to us. To the stress, to the time, to having to put up with you. A cold dread, colder than the air conditioning they were complaining about, crept up my spine. What are you talking about, Chad? Sarah delivered the final blow. We've looked at the market rates for a room in this zip code, plus utilities, plus compensation for our care. She paused, letting the word hang in the air like a threat. We've decided that $5,000 a month is a fair price for you to continue living here. The air was sucked from the room. $5,000 a month. That's right, Chad said, nodding as if he'd just solved a complex equation. To live in my own house, I whispered, my voice barely audible. It's not your house anymore, Sarah said, her voice flat and devoid of all emotion. Not really. A house belongs to the people who live in it, who make it a home. That's us. You're just here. I looked past them at the cherry wood cabinets I had sanded and stained by hand. This house, I whispered, is in my name. I paid off the mortgage in 2003. It is my house. Sarah laughed that horrible laugh again. That's just a piece of paper, Dad. That's old person thinking. This is our world now, and in our world you pay your way. And if I refuse? Asked my voice still quiet. If I don't pay your $5,000 extortion fee? The look on my daughter's face, my little girl's face, became a mask of cold, absolute indifference. She leaned in close enough for me to see the tiny flecks of green in her eyes, so like her mother's. Then you get out. What? You heard me? Pay the rent or get out. We are not supporting you anymore. You have until the 1st of the month. That's 10 days. Find the money or find a new place to live. Chad was grinning now. A truly disgusting sight. Sarah stood tall, proud of herself as if she'd just negotiated a corporate merger, and I just stared at her. I stared at this stranger wearing my daughter's face. I saw the $1,000 phone in her hand. I saw the diamond earrings Chad had surprised her with last Christmas. Earrings I had paid for when I'd given him $2,000 for a medical bill that never materialized. I had financed my own execution. I didn't yell, I didn't beg, I didn't list the hundreds of thousands of dollars I'd spent, the sacrifices I'd made. What was the point? They knew. They just didn't care. My heart, which I thought had shattered, found a new, more intricate way to break. I stood up from the table. I looked at the half-eaten lunch I had prepared for us all. I understand, I said. My voice was perfectly terrifyingly flat. Sarah's triumphant smile faltered. She had expected a fight. She had expected tears, begging, arguments. She had prepared for a storm. She was not prepared for calm. You understand? She stammered. Yes, I said. I understand completely. Pay or get out. You've made your position perfectly clear. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. I went to my bedroom, the master bedroom, the one room they hadn't yet dared to claim. I closed the door. I heard the lock click into place. I sat on the edge of the bed in the profound silence. I could hear their voices in the kitchen, lowered to excited whispers now. Well, that was easier than I thought, I heard Chad murmur. Sarah let out a nervous, giddy giggle. See? I told you. He's just a lonely old man. He has nowhere else to go. He'll pay. A lonely old man. Maybe I was. I reached for the silver frame on my nightstand. She smiled back at me, frozen in time from our vacation to the Rockies years ago. Her eyes were bright, full of life and a wisdom I had always relied on. I whispered to the glass. You were right. You always said Sarah had Chad's ambition. You just prayed she wouldn't adopt his morals. It seemed her prayers had gone unanswered. This was our room, our sanctuary, and now my daughter was demanding a $5,000 monthly toll for me to sleep in my own bed. He has nowhere else to go, Sarah had said. That's where she was wrong. That's where they were both so catastrophically, beautifully wrong. They were celebrating their victory in the kitchen, convinced I was defeated. But while they toasted their extortion scheme, I was opening a small hidden safe, pulling out the one document they never knew existed, the document that would destroy them both. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, the click of the lock still echoing in the quiet room. Pay or get out. The words repeated in my head, a stupid, vicious little mantra. Pay or get out. My own daughter, my Sarah, had just threatened to make her 65-year-old father homeless. The father who had paid for her college, her wedding, and the roof over her head for the last 6 years. I could hear them on the other side of the door. The whispers had turned into conversation, and now I heard the clink of glasses, laughter. They were celebrating. They had just successfully shaken down a 65-year-old widower for $5,000 a month, and they were celebrating. He'll pay, Sarah had said. A lonely old man? Maybe I was. I reached for the silver frame on my nightstand. Margaret. She smiled back at me, frozen in time from our trip to the Rockies in 1999. Her eyes were bright, full of a life and a cleverness I had always adored. Oh, Margaret, I whispered to the glass. You wouldn't believe this. You wouldn't believe what she's become. Margaret had been the smart one, the planner. I was the builder, the one who worked with his hands. She was the strategist, the one who saw 3 moves ahead in any game. She's got Chad's ambition, Margaret used to say about Sarah. I just pray she doesn't inherit his character. It seemed her prayers had not been answered. This was our room. Our room. I had carried Margaret over this threshold in 1983. Sarah had learned to walk on these very floors. This was the room I had sat in, holding Margaret's hand as she took her last breath 6 years and 4 months ago. And now that same daughter was demanding a king's ransom for the privilege of me sleeping in it. He has nowhere else to go, she had said. That's where she was wrong. That's where they were both so catastrophically, beautifully wrong. They saw me as old. They saw me as weak. They saw me as simple. What they didn't see was Margaret's foresight. I stood up and walked to the closet. Behind my old work jackets and a box of Margaret's scarves I still couldn't part with, there was a small gray safe set into the wall. I spun the dial. 10:29:82, our wedding date. The tumblers clicked with a satisfying solidity. Inside, beneath my old passport and Margaret's mother's silver bracelet, was a thick, navy blue legal folder. I pulled it out and sat back on the bed. The cover was embossed with simple, stark lettering. The Margaret Vance Roberts Irrevocable Trust. Margaret had been a paralegal for 35 years. She saw things. She saw families torn apart over inheritances. She saw greedy children try to have their parents declared incompetent. 8 years ago, when the doctors first found the lump, she didn't fall apart. She got organized. "Robert," she had said, sitting right at the kitchen table downstairs, "we have to protect ourselves. Not from strangers, but from family." At the time, I thought she was being paranoid. Sarah was in her late 20s. She was our little girl, but I trusted my wife. I would have trusted Margaret with my life. And in the end, I did. We went to a formidable estate lawyer, a shark from a big firm in Houston. We spent months and a small fortune restructuring everything. We didn't just write a will. We built a fortress. We took this house, the house I built, the house I paid off in 2003, and we transferred the deed. We moved it out of my name. We moved it out of her name. We placed it permanently and legally into the trust. I am not the owner of this house. Not anymore. I am the sole lifetime trustee. I am the manager. I am the one in control. The house belongs to the trust. And who is the beneficiary of that trust? Our other child, our son Michael, who lives in Seattle, the one who calls every Sunday without fail, the one who sends pictures of his new baby, the one who has never, not once, asked me for a single dime. Sarah was left a generous cash sum in our will, but she has absolutely zero claim on this property. None, legally. Sarah and her deadbeat husband were not family members living with their father. They were tenants at will, guests. Squatters with an invitation that had just officially expired. A cold, sharp clarity washed over me, pushing the pain down into a deep, frozen place. "Pay or get out," she had demanded. She had just given the landlord an ultimatum. She had just tried to charge the owner rent. The sheer, breathtaking arrogance of it. The stupidity. They were so blinded by their greed, so convinced of my weakness, that they never even bothered to check the public records. They just assumed it was all theirs for the taking. I looked at Margaret's picture again. "You did it, sweetheart," I whispered. A small, cold smile touched my lips for the first time in days. "You saved me. Even now." Sarah thought I had nowhere to go. I could go anywhere. I had my pension, I had my savings, and I had the full, unrestricted legal authority of the Margaret Vance Roberts Irrevocable Trust backing me. She thought she was giving me 10 days to find $5,000. She had no idea. She had just given herself 10 days to find a new life. I stood up. The shock was gone. The grief for my daughter was still there, but it was now packed in ice. All that was left was a clear, cold purpose. I picked up my phone. It wasn't time to call my son, Michael. Not yet. It was time to call my lawyer. I placed the call to Henderson, my lawyer. But I wasn't just going to evict them. I had a much more permanent, more devastating solution in mind. One that would turn their greedy celebration into a desperate fight for survival. I picked up my phone. My hands were perfectly steady. The initial shock and grief had been replaced by a cold, focused clarity. I scrolled past Sarah's number, past my son Michael's, and found the contact listed under H. Henderson, the man Margaret had entrusted with our future. The phone rang twice before he answered, his voice exactly as I remembered it, calm, precise, and radiating quiet expense. Henderson Legal, this is Henderson speaking. Henderson, I said, my voice low but firm. It's Robert Vance. There was a brief pause, the sound of a mental filing cabinet being accessed. Robert, it's been some time. I trust you've been well given the circumstances. The circumstances were Margaret's funeral and the final execution of her meticulous plans. I'm managing, I said, but I'm calling about the trust. Margaret's trust. Of course, he replied, all business. Is there an issue with the distributions for Michael? Michael is fine. This is about the primary asset, the house. It's time. I want you to sell it. The silence on the other end was profound. I could picture him in his leather chair adjusting his glasses. Robert, sell the house? You have lifetime rights to reside. As trustee, you have the authority, but this is a major liquidation. What's happened? I am aware of the terms, I said, my voice leaving no room for debate. I am the trustee, and I am instructing you to sell the asset. All right, he said slowly, shifting into his full legal advisory mode. But practically, we cannot just sell it. Your daughter and her husband are living there. They've established residency. Under Texas law, we'd have to give them a formal 30-day notice to vacate. They will contest it. They can drag this out for months, maybe a year. No one will buy a property with hostile occupants. They are the problem. They won't be a problem, I stated. Robert, with all due respect, they are the problem. You can't just... Henderson, I interrupted, my voice dropping into the tone I used to use on my construction crews when a decision was final. Last night, my daughter informed me I am, in her words, just a boarder in this house. She then gave me an ultimatum. Pay $5,000 a month in rent by the first of the month or get out. Her exact words were, pay or get out. The lawyer was silent for a long moment. She did what? She just tried to extort her landlord, Henderson. She just gave the trustee of the property a notice to vacate. A low whistle came down the line. My God, Robert, I'm sorry. Don't be, I said, and I meant it. It clarifies things, but you're right about one thing. I cannot wait months. I don't want a court fight. I don't want a for sale sign. I want this done fast and clean. What are you proposing? He asked, his voice now sharp with interest. I'm not selling it on the open market. I want you to call an iBuyer. Austin Property Ventures, Open Door, Zillow offers, I don't care. I want a cash offer, as is sight unseen. I want it closed in 7 days. Robert, you'll take a massive financial hit. The house is easily worth $1.1 million. You'll be lucky to get $940,000, I said. I will take $940. I don't care about the money, Henderson. I care about the principle. I want this asset liquidated. I want them out. Can you do it? I heard the faint click of a mouse. He was already running the numbers. A cash offer, as is, closing in 7 days. Yes, Robert, I can do that. I'll make the calls first thing in the morning. Good, I said. Send all the paperwork to my new address. New address? That's right. As of tonight, I'm honoring my daughter's request. I'm getting out. I ended the call. The plan was in motion. At 5 the next morning, the house was silent and dark. I had not slept. I dressed quietly and packed a single suitcase with essentials, the trust documents, and the photo of Margaret. Everything else was just a relic of a life that was now over. I walked through the house one last time, a ghost in my own home. In the kitchen, I found a notepad and wrote a simple note. Sarah, Chad, I need a few days to think about your request. I'll be at a friend's. Dad. I left it on the counter where the electric bill had been, a piece of bait to make them feel secure and victorious. I slipped out the front door as the sun began to lighten the sky. Not looking back, a taxi was waiting at the corner. Where to, sir? The driver asked. The Four Seasons downtown, I said. By 6:15, I was checked into a suite overlooking the city. The room was quiet, impersonal, and peaceful. I ordered a robust coffee from room service. For the first time in 6 years, I felt a strange, cold peace. I was no longer a caretaker or a burden. I was a man with a mission about to become very, very liquid. I was settled in my hotel. The wheels of justice were turning, but I needed to know why. What was behind their desperate, stupid greed? The answer would be worse than I ever imagined. I let a day pass in the quiet luxury of the hotel. I knew my note would keep them pacified. They would assume I was scared, overwhelmed and scrambling to find their money. Let them feel powerful. My phone buzzed around noon. A text from Sarah. "Dad, where are you? Call me." I ignored it. An hour later, another. "Dad, this isn't funny. We're worried." I almost laughed. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about their crumbling scheme. I was busy. Henderson had called. The offers were in. Zillow at $890, Open Door at $910, but Austin Property Ventures had met my price. $940,000 cash. They could close in 5 days. "Take it," I'd said, and the die was cast. But Henderson had more. "You asked me to find out why," he'd said, his voice grim. My investigator pulled their credit. "Robert, they are $210,000 in debt. Maxed out cards, luxury car loans they can't afford. Sarah's BMW is days from repossession." It all snapped into focus. The aggression, the desperation. The $5,000 rent was just a tactic, a way to pressure me. The real plan was always the home equity loan they wanted me to sign. "But there's more," Henderson continued. "Mark wasn't laid off. He was fired for embezzlement. $50,000. His old company gave him a deadline to repay it by the end of the month, or they file criminal charges." The final piece of the puzzle slammed into place. They weren't just greedy. They were cornered animals, and my house was their only escape route. My own daughter was willing to make me a pauper to save her criminal husband. The hotel phone rang, shattering the silence. It was Henderson again. "It's done," he said. "The wire transfer cleared. The deed was filed with the county an hour ago. The house no longer belongs to the trust. It belongs to Austin Property Ventures." A cold wave of finality washed over me. "And the occupants?" I asked. "Mr. Cade's team is efficient. They are serving a formal notice to vacate tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. As tenants at will with a new owner seeking possession, Texas law gives them 72 hours, 3 days. I thanked him and hung up. The clock was now ticking for them, and they didn't even know it. The next morning, Saturday, I sat by my window at 9:01 a.m., sipping my coffee. Right on. Schedule, my cell phone vibrated. "Sarah." I let it ring 3 times, then answered. I didn't speak. I just listened. The sound that came through wasn't a word. It was a shriek of pure, blindsided terror. "Dad! Dad, where are you? Sarah, what's wrong? Are you okay?" I feigned confusion. A man was just here. He put a bright orange sticker on our door. It says notice to vacate. It says we have 72 hours. "Dad, who is Austin Property Ventures?" I don't know, honey. Maybe it's a mistake, a prank." "It's not a prank. It has our address. It says the house was sold." "Sold? What did you do?" I could hear Chad roaring in the background. Then his voice was in my ear, raw and raging. "You old bastard, you call off your fake lawyers right now. This isn't funny." "Fake lawyers, Chad? I don't have any lawyers. I'm just a lonely old man, remember? Nowhere to go. Don't you play dumb with me. You fix this." "Or what, Chad?" I asked, my voice dropping all pretense, becoming cold and hard. "What are you going to do? You, a man being investigated for embezzling $50,000, are going to threaten me?" The silence was absolute. I had just confirmed I knew their deepest secret. The phone fumbled and Sarah was back, her voice a terrified whisper. You knew? You knew about the money?" "I know everything, Sarah. The $210,000 in debt, the embezzlement, the deadline. I know you were going to trick me into signing a loan to steal the equity from my house. Your house." She was sobbing now, broken. "But the house, it says it's sold. New owners. What does that mean?" "It means," I said, my voice perfectly calm, "that you should start packing." The line erupted into a symphony of hysterical sobs and enraged bellows. But I had heard all I needed to. The final blow had been struck. Now it was time to deliver the last unforgettable lesson. The line erupted into a chaos of sounds. Sarah's weeping, sharp and guttural, was the dominant note. Beneath it I could hear Chad's voice, no longer roaring but muttering low curses, the sound of a man watching his entire world implode. You sold it?" Sarah finally choked out, the words barely intelligible between sobs. "You actually sold our home?" "I sold my home," I corrected, my voice flat and unwavering. "The notice on your door is from the new legal owners. You have 72 hours from Saturday morning. That means you need to be out by 9 a.m. Tuesday. But the money. You said 940. She couldn't even finish the number, the sheer magnitude of it and its loss suffocating her. The funds have been wired to the trust's account, I confirmed, clinical and detached. It was a very clean transaction. A new kind of panic entered her voice, a desperate, grasping avarice cutting through the shock. Dad, listen, you have it. You have the money. You can still fix this. You can give us what we need. You can pay off the debts. You can save Chad. We'll go. We'll leave you alone, I promise. Just please. We're your family. There it was. The final pathetic play. After the threats, the extortion, the conspiracy to commit fraud, she still believed she was entitled to the money. Family, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air, stripped of all its warmth and meaning. You taught me what that word really means, Sarah. You taught me that my value was exactly $5,000 a month, and when I couldn't pay, you fired me. I am simply respecting the new relationship you defined. No, I didn't mean it. We were stressed. We were scared, she wailed. You meant every word, I said, and words have consequences. You gave me a choice, pay or get out. I chose to get out. I heard a crash. Chad's voice erupted again. He sold it, Sarah. He sold it for almost $1 million and he's just sitting on it. Then he was on the phone again, his breath ragged. Robert, please, you have to undo this. Call them back. Tell them it was a mistake. It's irrevocable, Chad, I said. The sale is final. The new owners are not sentimental people. That notice on your door is not a suggestion. You have until Tuesday. But where? Sarah screamed, snatching the phone back. We have no money. We have nowhere to go. You're throwing your own daughter onto the street. No, I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper, cold and absolute. You did that to yourselves. You are not my problem anymore. The line went silent for a moment, and then Sarah's voice came through, changed. The desperation was gone, replaced by a chilling, venomous hatred. You are a monster, she hissed. A bitter, cruel old man. I hate you. I felt nothing. No pain, no anger, just a vast, empty calm. I'm sure you do, I replied. Goodbye, Sarah. I didn't wait for a response. I pressed the button to end the call. Then methodically, I blocked both their numbers. A final digital severance, with Sarah and Chad blocked. A profound silence fell. The confrontation was over, but the final act of their drama was still to come. Tomorrow was Monday, and I knew their desperation would only grow. Monday, the day before the eviction. A strange anticipatory quiet settled over me. The hotel suite was a sanctuary, a world away from the panic I knew was unfolding at the house I once called home. My phone, now free of their numbers, remained silent. I imagined the frantic calls to moving companies they couldn't afford, the desperate pleas to friends who probably saw them coming. I spent the day not in worry, but in planning. I opened my laptop and began looking at villas in Tuscany, then apartments in Paris. The money from the sale was no longer a symbol of loss, but a key to a new future. Margaret's foresight hadn't just protected me, it had liberated me. In the afternoon, I made the call I had been looking forward to. Michael, I said when he answered. How are you, son? Good, Dad. Just chasing your grandson around the backyard. What's up? I have a proposition for you, I said, a genuine smile in my voice. How would you and the family feel about a trip to Europe? There was a stunned silence. Europe? Dad, what? When? Soon, I said, very soon. And it's my treat, all of it. Dad, what is this about? Is this a lottery win I don't know about? He joked, his voice laced with confusion and delight. Let's just say I've recently liquidated a major asset and I've decided the best way to honor your mother is by creating new memories with the family who values time over things. Whoa! The house? You sold the house? He asked, his tone softening with understanding. It became necessary, I said gently, closing the door on further questions. The important thing is that I'm free and I want to use that freedom with you and my grandchildren. Start looking at pictures of Italy. First class, the best hotels. I want to do this right. We talked for 20 minutes, the conversation filled with a light, excited energy that felt like a balm on my soul. After we hung up, I felt a peace so deep it was almost dizzying. The future was no longer a burden to be endured, but an adventure to be embraced. I allowed myself one final thought about the house. Tomorrow was Tuesday. I wondered if they were packed. I wondered if they finally understood the cost of their greed. The story of the house was finished, but my story was just beginning. As I looked at travel itineraries, I knew tomorrow would bring a final, decisive end to the past, clearing the way for my new life. Tuesday morning, the day had arrived. I was in my suite, enjoying a leisurely breakfast while finalizing details for a villa in Tuscany I had rented for the following month. My phone, now a device of peace and planning, was filled with photos from Michael. The contrast to the chaos I had left behind was staggering. At 9:05 a.m., my hotel phone rang. It was Henderson. "It's done, Robert," he said, his voice devoid of any emotion. The constable and a crew from Austin Property Ventures were at the property at 9:01 a.m. Your daughter and son-in-law were removed. Their possessions were placed in a moving pod on the curb. The locks have been changed. I closed my eyes, not in pain, but in final acknowledgement. The chapter was closed, not with a bang, but with the sterile efficiency of a corporate transaction. "Thank you, Henderson, for everything. The trust assets are secure and ready for reinvestment," he added. "Life goes on." "Indeed it does," I agreed. "I'll be in touch about transferring funds for a rather extended vacation." As I hung up, I allowed myself one final moment to think of them. Sarah and Chad, standing on a curb amidst their expensive, debt-fueled belongings. The neighbors they were so desperate to impress now witnessing their ultimate humiliation. The BMW would be repossessed by the end of the week, and Chad's deadline for the $50,000 had now passed. Their future was a yawning chasm of legal and financial ruin, a chasm they had dug with their own greed. There was no satisfaction in it, only a quiet, solemn understanding. They had been given every advantage, a free home for 6 years, unwavering support, and they had chosen to bite the hand that fed them. They confused kindness for weakness and silence for stupidity. They learned too late that respect is not a one-way street, and that dignity, once you sell it, cannot be bought back. A week later, I was packing my new suitcase for Italy. A courier arrived with a final document from Henderson. It was a brief note attached to the official closing statement. "Robert, a final update. A warrant has been issued for Chad's arrest on embezzlement charges. They were unable to secure housing and have separated. Sarah is reportedly staying with a friend. The pod of their belongings was forfeited after 3 days. H. I read it once, then filed it away. It was no longer my concern. The poison was out of my system. That afternoon, I drove to the cemetery. I sat by Margaret's headstone, the Texas sun warm on my back. "It's finished, Maggie," I said softly. "Your fortress held. You saved me." I could almost hear her voice on the breeze, a whisper of approval. She had not just protected me from financial ruin, but from a life of emotional servitude. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in a decade. I was not a bitter old man. I was a free man. I had chosen to get out, and in doing so, I had found my way back to life, to my son, and to the legacy of love and wisdom my wife had left me. The next day, I was on a plane, soaring above the clouds, the past shrinking away behind me. The future was no longer a burden to be endured, but an adventure to be embraced, paid for in full by the lessons of the past. My story is a stark reminder that the true value of wealth isn't in the money itself, but in the freedom it can buy. The freedom to walk away from toxicity and towards a life of peace and purpose. What would you have done in my shoes? Let me know in the comments below.